Hello and welcome to Aquarium Dilemmas. I'm your host, ScienceGal Aquatics. I'm Kerri, and this is my co-host,
Jesse, and welcome. Thank you for tuning in for another wonderful episode, and one that is near and dear to Kerri's heart.
Yes. It's a very popular fish in the hobby, and I think it's one that's picked often for the first-time fish keeper, and that's guppies. And it will always be near and dear to my heart because, like I've said in the past, it was the first fish I got to keep all by myself. I had a tank in each corner of my room, and I will forever hold guppies. They're just very, very high on my list and very special.
Well,
kind of the do's and don'ts of what I've picked up along the way from the beginning of keeping guppies to what I've learned now. Just kind of general do's and don'ts for guppies.
yes, that's the whole premise of this, and we're just going to run down a wonderful list of do's and don'ts, and we're just going to start from the beginning and work our way up.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's just pick a tank size. Why don't we? I mean, we got to have a tank to put them in first. I mean, I'm pretty sure that we ain't throwing them on the ground. So
yes, in the beginning of keeping fish, I would fight and argue, and I would highly disagree with anybody that did not think smaller was the way to go. And even though I do like smaller tanks, I do appreciate them. I think for guppies especially, or someone maybe starting off for the first time, I think larger is a little bit better. It's a big tip I've learned along the way, and a mind shift that the more water volume you have, it's just better it's easier for me, I will talk about me, to keep things like not fluctuating as much as a smaller water volume. I feel like in the beginning, especially when it's being set up and established, I just have a harder time keeping 5-gallon and smaller just steady, just even, and just it's harder to get established, and I have a lot of fluctuations in the nitrogen cycle, and it's back and forth for a while. So personally, I think that you should, if you can, start off with a larger water volume, especially for a trio guppies. I like a 20-gallon long. I really like that tank for a trio of guppies, especially if you're planning on breeding them. A 10-gallon is a close second. I like a 10-gallon tank, but anything smaller than that, I have trouble getting it established without these drastic ups and downs. And anything larger than that, I like for keeping a little bit more, but for breeding, and it's just a trio, I feel like a 20 long is a really good tank.
Well, good job on stealing my answer.
Well, there you go.
I will premise it with the overall answer would be yes, you can keep a guppy or two in a 5-gallon tank.
Yeah, you can keep them however you want. And like I said in the beginning, I kept them in smaller 5-gallon. They were taller than wider when I first started, but then I went to the 5-gallon tanks, and like you said, they do work great. It's just in the beginning with a new fish keeper, I feel like it's just harder to get them established without those drastics up and down. Whereas a 10, you still have some fluctuations in the beginning, but it's just the more water volume that you have, it's just a little bit easier. If you're experienced and you know what you're doing, then sure, then you probably won't have any trouble. But I'm just talking about, for me, I've learned don't keep them in a smaller tank and do keep them in a 20 long.
Well, for me, being the newer, I'm still going to go with a 20 long for every reason you said. More room, water parameters, and stability of the water is so much easier when you deal with just a fraction of a bigger water volume. And if it's going to be your one and only tank, a 20 is not too big. You can't move. You can put it anywhere in your house. Yeah. If it's going to be your show tank that people are going to walk in and see, you can put it almost anywhere in your house. You don't have to have nothing super fancy. You can get a nice cabinet for it or a piece of furniture or whatever. Yeah. So I find it the most versatile and works very, very well with guppies.
I just feel like it's easier for me to keep them. That's just I really like the 20 long, but like you said, and when I first got into fish keeping, I liked those smaller tanks because they were you could put them on anything and they weren't as heavy. So there are a lot of perks to keeping smaller tanks. It's just for me in the beginning, even knowing more, being more experienced than when I first started fish keeping, I have some battles with smaller water volumes. But some people, maybe even you listening, won't have any trouble. So if that's what you want and that's what you like and that's what works for you, then sure. But with the smaller tanks, just keep in mind you don't want to overstock them. And if you're intending to breed them, unless you have a plan and know what you're doing to kind of shuffle things around and move them, you're going to run out of space. So it just goes into what you like, what works for you, and what you're kind of in. If you don't wish to breed them and you're keeping 2 male guppies in a 5-gallon tank and it's clear and cycled and established and planted, then yeah, that's going to work.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just ideally,
100%.
I've learned the hard lesson of larger water volumes. If you can get a larger water volume, even with guppies, it's easier for you and easier for me.
Well, moving on, what is we got our tank picked out now.
Yeah, we got our tank now.
We got our tank picked out. So moving on, what substrate are we putting in our tank? The do's and the don'ts of the substrate.
Well, this is going to be kind of maybe 2 answers in one. I think now, I say more experienced, I hope I'm more experienced, more years into the hobby, I find that adding plants does overall wonders for my guppies. Breeding
well, there you go
everything.
Again, stealing my answers.
But with saying that, my main focus now for when it comes to substrate is I cater more to my plants than my guppies, because guppies, like what you usually do, generally speaking, not all species of guppies, but the vast majority of them, if you keep them in a tank together, males and females, they're going to breed, and the substrate, it doesn't much matter. And they're going to breed, generally speaking. They don't care if it's a bare bottom or a planted tank. But I feel like the planted tanks, you're going to yield more fry. They're going to look better. They're just going to look... it's just not comparable. And when I first started fish keeping, I had the plastic plants in the neon gravel. And did it work? Did they breed? Yes. But now I feel like I have a harder focus on breeding them and getting specific lines. So I think that there's more benefits to having live plants. So my substrate is catered to plants. And when I was growing up, I thought I needed 1 inch of neon gravel. And that's what I did. Again, the guppies bred and they were colder water too. But I feel like I do well with low tech plants. So guppy grass, vallisneria, a bunch of mosses. And I like a mix of the gravel I get from the creek and river with some paver sand and some fluvostratum in most cases. And it's kind of things that I like a little bit of this. It's a good mix of things that cater to the plants that I keep.
Yeah, well, I enjoy using the fluvostratum, and it doesn't matter what your favorite... If you're going to plant the tank, whatever your favorite substrate is for plants, obviously use that.
Yes.
Use that. I like to put a good layer of that down, and then to keep ScienceGal happy, then we go ahead and we cap it, usually with some sort of sand, or we'll do a sand and a gravel mix.
Yeah, there's play sand, and you can get sand at the pet store. There, you can just mainly, if it's not, just rinse it. Rinse it. Even if you get it from the pet store and it's a higher end sand, just rinse it. But I do we have dirted tanks, and I've had crest coral tanks, and I've had different types of tank substrate, but again, I feel like if I have a heavier planted tank, my females get a place to hide, the fry get a place to hide. They have a little bit more water volume than I did when I was a kid. They're heated. I recommend, for me, I do best with my fry and my adults between 74 degrees Fahrenheit and 78 degrees Fahrenheit. The plants do well. The fry grow. It's not too hot and it's not too cold. They do well with heat. And even keeping them outside during the summertime, they breed like crazy outside and they're beautiful. But because I cater to the plants with my substrate and my plants are doing better, my mosses are doing better, just because of that, everything has a place to hide, rest, and there's numerous benefits.
Well, all those benefits and aesthetically pleasing it is. When you have a beautiful planted tank that's jungle-like almost, when you got all that vallisneria and moss, and I mean, you can have all different types of floating plants in there too, guppy grass, different things. The guppies just really, their colors are very vibrant and they pop, and it's aesthetically pleasing. And again, it goes with what you said. There's places for them to hide, take a break, rest. The females aren't always getting chased by the males. If you have females and males together, that is a constant thing that's going to be happening.
Yeah. And with going back a little bit with the substrate, like I said, growing up, I always just was under the assumption I needed 1 inch. And you can have however much substrate you want. But it's fun to kind of play around and have some that are a little deeper substrates and some that are maybe just sand or some that's this or that, and just kind of play around, because for so long I used one thing and that's it. So if you have the opportunity to play around with different substrates, the guppies, as long as they have a place to hide, and I do always recommend planting your tank, especially like with guppies, if you wish to breed them or just keep them in general. But even saying that, play around with different things. Add botanicals, add leaf litter, add some driftwood, maybe try one bare bottom, try different things and see what you like. And then maybe you discover, like I did, I like gravel and some sand together with some stratum, and even play around with that different. Just play around. It's because it's fun to discover something new I was just boxed in for so long. And once I had the epiphany that you can try different things as substrate, and I even knew the word substrate, it was just the combinations of things that you can keep guppies in is just, it's not, I guess I wouldn't say limitless, but in a sense, it's limitless. There's so many different combinations and plants. And even though we haven't ventured into the high-tech tank, we probably will sooner than later, having fun with all these different plants and seeing how much more, like, we've just got tons more guppies than we ever did. But keeping them outside, it's not, like, it's crazy. We're lucky enough to be able to breed them during the summer outside, but it's just, they do well in the fish room. They do. But being outside, it's just crazy with the live food. And we'll get into food in a minute, but it's nuts. So if you can breed them outside, I recommend at least trying it. Even just going outside, there's a difference in how they breed and how they look.
Well, it all ties together for me. The substrate and the low-tech plants tie together, because if you're doing a tank, and it's your only one tank, you're going to want to enjoy that tank, and you're probably not going to want to have to work on it all the time. No. So with doing a nice layer of substrate, something good for your plants, capping it off, you can use all kinds of low-level, low-tech plants. They will grow beautiful. They'll grow wonderful. You don't have to do hardly anything to them. You might have to occasionally put a root tab or something, or fertilize in one way or another. Yeah. But it's fun, and the fish will absolutely enjoy it.
Yeah. But just going on the substrate, like, You, like you said, if you have one tank and it's a guppy tank and you don't want to constantly change it up, but maybe once a year you might find some kind of new substrate or something to try and put in it, and you're not switching it up completely, but you're still experimenting and trying new things in your guppy tank.
Oh yeah.
The guppies won't mind it, and then it's just fun to, I guess, going back to what I think my point is, it's just I was boxed in to neon gravel for so long with the guppies, and they did good. They bred, but it's just there's, in my point of view, they look healthier, they seem more active, they look prettier, and I feel like branching out of that small little box I was in just changed everything with the way I keep guppies, and it was unbelievably beneficial.
Well, and to go along with that, the reason of the natural plants over having plastic decor in there, you can have plastic decor, but kind of check out your plastic decor and make sure it's not too sharp edged or anything. Yeah. That way, I mean, it can be very abrasive underwater to a fish.
Yeah, growing up, the tanks were 5 gallon. They were a little taller than wider. They were cold water. I had the neon gravel with the plastic plants. And like I said 100 times, they did okay. And there were so many snails. It was crazy. Everything bred and they did good. But there's a point where you can keep guppies in cold water, but there's a point where it's too cold. And going kind of circling back to outside, they breed like crazy. And I feel like they grow larger because there's live food in the tubs, and the natural sunlight is just, it brings out colors I didn't even know they had. But in where we live, they do good for like 3 months, but you have to bring them in because there is a point in our winter it's too cold. And the same with, you can keep them in cold water in a non-heated tank, but they're going to do better between 74 and 78 degrees Fahrenheit, where they still will be okay at 65. I wouldn't go much below 64, 65, and I wouldn't go much past 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The natural fluctuations of being outside, because I feel like even though it's a fluctuation, it becomes a natural up and down, where in the fish room, I try to keep it steady between the 74 degrees Fahrenheit and the 78. And I feel like it does good. It's a good temperature for the fry and the adults. But outside, I just have to bring them in before the first frost, because there is a point where it's just too cold and they won't make it being outside year round. Whereas some of the fish I keep, they can be outside year round.
Yes, absolutely.
So I guess a don't is, how would you say that? I don't even know. You could keep them in cold water, but don't go too cold. And you can keep them in 80 degrees, but I wouldn't go much above that. However you want to take that as a do and don't.
Well, we'll preface this with a little scientific. The higher you go in the temperature, you're speeding that fish's metabolism up.
Yeah.
Which, when you do that, unfortunately, you're shortening their lifespan.
Yeah, and I think with guppies, they say, I think, off the top of my head, they're supposed to live generally like 1 to 5 years. I usually keep them about 2 to 3 years, and I feel like the females in my fish room live longer than the males. But if you keep them extremely hot, if you keep your tank extremely hot, I just don't feel like the fish do well. The plants do very well. There's always cases that some require that. Just guppies themselves, I've kept them in all different types of things over the years, and I feel like that 74 degrees Fahrenheit to 78, they grow quick. But they don't go too quick. They reach maturity in a reasonable amount of time, like 3 months to 6 months. You can get some good size on them, and they just don't reach maturity too fast. It's not too slow where it's just you're waiting forever. It's just a good range for me to keep the guppies at.
Oh yeah.
But being outside, because we do breed them outside, they do have more of an up and down. especially if you keep them in a smaller tub. But I feel like just because it's a consistent up and down and they have so many live foods, and it's just, if you have the opportunity, just try it. Just try to breed some fish outside. It's crazy how just they look amazing. They do.
Well, natural environment, sunlight, and natural food is amazing.
Do try to keep guppies outside if you have the right. I know it doesn't work everywhere, but if you can, I do recommend it.
Well, we got some plants in our tank. We got our tank picked out. We got some substrate in there.
Yeah.
Now, water.
Yeah, what kind of water do you want?
Well, for me, I know guppies, we're not going soft. We're going to the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah. And I will have to say, like, you can go into detail, like in-depth discussion when it comes to water parameters. And like I said, I've kept the guppies the longest. And I've been through phases where I didn't even know what the word parameters meant, to the opposite end of the spectrum where I was like chasing every number, wanting to know everything to the just minute details. And I've just learn your water, learn what you have, and keep what does well in your water. And I'm lucky that I fell in love with guppies, and I've always lived with hard water. Our water is extremely hard, and the guppies, luckily, they love it, and they do well. I feel like when I've ordered fish the few times here and there and gotten fish from different things here and there, I feel they do better going from softer to harder than harder to softer. But just know your water and don't chase numbers. And if you want to know the pH, learn your pH. It's important to know if you have what you have pH wise, what comes out of the tap, if it's hard or soft. Like, it's important. But don't just go through and if it's not exactly at a 7.8, then add this and this. If you want to try it, go for it. But I have destroyed tanks, because I was just adding everything I possibly could to get everything just right. When in reality, I needed to take a step back, learn some patience, and everything was going to be just fine.
Well,
even those 5-gallon tanks that I told you in the beginning were so, even in time with patience, they will even out. You just, if you want to try, I'm not going to tell you can't buy that and try it, but I just learned to know your water, test your water, get to know your water, have a relationship with your water, know everything you can about it, but keep what does well in what you have.
Well, if you just do the old Google research, guppies generally hard water, higher alkalinity, and a slightly higher pH. They like that over 7 number. They like that 7.2 up range.
Yeah, and growing up, we had well water, and I wish I knew about live plants back then, and I did not. I just did not. And now our water, the plants we have do great, but that was one thing I wish I would have tried back in the day with that well water, because I like that well water. I miss it.
Well, yeah, it's hard, it's high alkalinity, high pH.
But for tank parameters to talk about for guppies, like what temperature wise, we kind of discussed that. I would say try to keep it heated from 74 degrees Fahrenheit to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's a little higher than that or a little lower than that, it'll be okay. But ideally around that range. pH, like you said, it's going to probably come out. It's supposed to come out of the tap at 7.0 at neutral. But our tanks, we have some that, like you said, are more 7.2, 7.4. And we have some that's closer to 8. I would say it's on the test strips, it was like 8.2. So there is some range, and I don't chase it. But ideally, like you said, I would say 7.0, 7.2, 7.4, 7.6 for guppies is going to work really good.
Yes.
7.8 even. Somewhere around that range, 7 point something is going to work great on that side of things.
Yes, and if you are like us and you have the wonderful super hard water and have calcium,
yes,
then you are going to, your guppies are going to love you.
They do really well in our water, and I'm really thankful for that I fell in love with the fish that just happened to work in my water.
Yes. Yes, we have the calcium problem. So just kind of check and figure out what kind of minerals are in your water. If it's calcium and magnesium, then you are off the chain. You have yourself all of the qualities for guppies and a lot of the other live bearers that really like hard water.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say on
tank parameters? No. I guess moving from tank parameters.
I feel like we're missing something, but we might think of something.
The one thing that goes with the tank parameters would be light.
Yeah. The one thing I could say about lights, I've tried higher end lights. I've used light bulbs from the lamp and like clamp lights from hardware store lights. The main thing I can say about that when it comes to keeping guppies is just remember to turn them off, because I'm not good at turning them off. And guppies, like everything else, they need some time to rest. They go to the bottom, they rest on the substrate, and it's important to give them that rest time. Your plants too, just remember to turn off the light. It's very important, and I've gotten better. I have, but it's still something that I highly recommend. Do not leave them on all the time. Do turn them off. It's very important.
Unless you want to be an algae farmer.
Well, not even that. It's important to give them rest time. They'll go down to the bottom. Usually when they drop fry, it's at night. The tank lights are off. They're hidden in a plant. Usually the guppy grass kind of at the surface in the back. And that's when they're going to drop fry. So if just the overall health of your tank, including your guppies, it's important to give things time to rest and turn off that light.
Well, and I think that with the water parameters, what you just said, the lights, the next thing to go with it would be filtration.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, and I know this for us to be a fact, is guppies do not need massive quantities. You don't need a high flow filtration system on a guppy tank.
I find it cute that, like, I really like the hang on the back whisper filters. We've talked about it in other podcasts. We modify them. We put different types of biomedia inside, but it's a good flow, but it's not too much. But it's gentle enough that the guppies will go in and they'll swim kind of in that output, and it's really cute to watch. So we're lucky that, again, we keep a lot of guppies. They're not overstocked tank. I usually start out with a trio. It's really important because the males don't usually give up to, if you don't have a trio and you just make sure you have more females than males. If you have 2 males, in case something happens, you want to back up, get 4 to 6 females. Just as long as when we say trio, we mean 1 male to 2 females. But as long as you have more males than females starting off, you'll be okay. Because the males, they don't give up. They're always after the females. So that was one thing we probably should have said.
Yes, and if you're not wanting to accidentally have fry, then you better just have all males.
Yeah, you don't have to. If you don't want to breed them, and if you're new to fish keeping and you'd rather try keeping them first before worrying about babies, just keep females or just keep males. Just pick one or the other.
You might want to put a little quotation on keep females.
Yeah.
That's why I said just keep males.
Just keep males.
Because males are more colorful anyway, in general.
Yeah.
In general, the males are more colorful.
Yeah.
That's because they're trying to entice and chase the females. And then your females, you can have a whole tank of females. However,
yeah, you might still have, well, you probably still, there's a good probability because they do have the ability to hold sperm. So just because they're not currently
with a male,
they can still reproduce or drop fry. So
yeah, if they've ever
if you
been
don't wish
with
to
a male.
have fry, yes, keep, or if you don't wish to have babies, keep probably just the males. But circling back to filtration, where the guppies, they're not the highest bioload fish. They don't have a huge bioload, and I don't recommend overfeeding, and we'll get to probably food in a second, but I've learned to stop overfeeding them and the tanks aren't overstocked, so we don't have huge amounts of bioload that we're trying to filter out of the tank. So they do well with like the sponge filters. Once I tried them, they do really well with sponge filters. They do really well with hang on the backs. If you have a larger community tank, you can, and have a canister filter on that, then they're going to probably do okay with that. If you wish to breed them, as the only thing I think I would worry about is in the input, if it's like a major opening and it's something that would suck up the fry, you might put some kind of sponge over it or something, modify it in a way that they don't suck up fry. But the sponge filters and the hang on the backs that I use, I've never had a problem with things sucking up the babies, and I keep shrimp and shrimplets too, and they don't mess with that. So for filtration, they're not a heavy bioload fish compared to like plecos and goldfish and just larger fish. And so I'd recommend probably just hang on the backs put some different biomedia in it. Don't use the carbon inserts, or a good sponge filter. There's a lot of different sponge filters, and they're all good. Everything I've personally tried, I've tried like 3 or 4 now, and they've all done really good. And the guppies enjoy them. And you don't want something so quick that they're whirling around and they're getting swirled around, but a nice gentle output for them to play around in, because they do kind of swim around in them. It's cute to watch. So
yes, I mean, filtration wise, the main thing is a little bit of mechanical filtration, obviously, just to take away some of the bigger particles. Yeah. Just make sure that the input will not suck your fish up against it. Yeah,
I feel like when you have a good mix of biological and mechanical filtration, I feel like those tanks do really well. But if you're experienced, and I've played around with it, because honestly, there's been times they've got clogged or they broke and I didn't notice it, that tank just because, and it was heavily planted, and over time I noticed something, or I didn't notice something, and it just became a no filter tank. So guppies, if you take the time to mature your tank, and I recommend you having it heavier planted and having it established for a while. And I'd still maintain water changes to remineralize the water, but they can go in a no filter tank to having a highly polished mix of mechanical and biological.
Oh, yeah.
So they're hardy fish. They're not the hardiest when they're first born or when they first come from certain fish stores do better than others. Certain places online you get better quality than others. But generally speaking, they're pretty hardy fish, and they can go in a lot of different parameters when it comes to filtration specifically. But growing up, I had them in an under gravel filter, and I had them with just an air stone. So I didn't have anything fancy by any means. To now I keep them, like I said, I like the hang on the back and the sponge filters. And we do have a couple no filter tanks because the filter broke or got clogged and it just became a no filter tank. And those tanks are crystal clear, but we still do water changes, and they're heavily planted, and they've been set up for a while. So. Oh,
they work. They really do work. The main thing is not overstocking.
Yeah, don't overfeed.
And don't overfeed. On both, whether it is a no filter or filter tank, you're going to have problems if it's overstocked and you overfeed.
Yeah. And one of the things I've learned over the years when it comes to guppies is I love it's a 55-gallon heavily planted tank. If you watch this podcast, if you become a member on YouTube, it's the one above my head. But it's just a mix of all different types of guppies. And it's a mutt tank. It has all different kinds of fry of various stages, and I love it. But you can make this super complicated and scientific where you're specifically line breeding and you're separating and you have 10 tanks of fry and you're choosing 1 male and 2 female specific. That's the fun of keeping guppies, that it can be a beginner fish to a super expert line of guppies. And there's so many different ways to keep them through the years that I've learned that there really is no wrong way. There's a few things you need to keep in mind, but you can do so many different things and you can find them in so many different colors and fin types that they're just a really good fish that if you've never kept them before and you have harder water, I really recommend, whether it's a community tank or you're specifically line breeding this kind. I just feel like it's a good fish to keep in your fish room.
Well, and that's probably why it's one of the most popular, if not the most popular fish in the hobby that is widely bred and distributed.
It would be my top 2 would be beta bettas or guppies. That would be but I don't know. That's something we probably should look up in the future. I don't know which one would be more popular. But between those 2, definitely. But going in, I guess another big thing to talk about would be tank mates.
Well, and with tank mates, their guppies are super, super peaceful, and they're all over the tank.
Yeah, I will say if you keep guppies for a while and you keep different kinds, you'll run into that one just annoying one that's like, really? You're going to be that aggressive? It doesn't happen often. And I haven't kept an aggressive guppy in a long time, but every once in a while, if you keep a lot of different kinds, you'll run into just that one, just overly nippy one. And you're like, really? Really? But generally speaking, like you say, they're super peaceful.
Well, they're super peaceful,
really enjoyable.
And they're all over the tank. So
yeah, they're all levels.
Yeah. So for me, I would say it would be either a very small pleco that's going to be at the bottom, a type of an L number of sorts, a little baby bristle nose or something like that, little bitty pleco, or shrimp that can clean your plants and that are going to be really happy with running around all over the place.
Yeah, we fell in love with the new Caradina shrimp, and I have them in like all the guppy tanks now.
Or you could even go so far as another bottom dweller that if you like the sand that Kerri likes and you like to have a sand cap on a lot of your tanks, you could even go with like Corys, little baby Cory cats that will turn that substrate up for you, and the plants will love it, and you can feed them as well. Yeah. But there's a big distinction, because then those are always on the bottom. Our Neocaridina are everywhere in the tank, but they're just working on they're peaceful. They're just working on all the plants. Yeah. They're just running around trying to take care of ScienceGal's algae farm.
Yeah. I think when it comes to tank paints, mainly I feel like you just said this, but you just want to keep something that can handle the same temperature and has similar temperament. I would not recommend keeping guppies with aggressive nippy cichlids of any sort. I've kept guppies with, like you said, shrimp, plecos, platies, swordtails. I've kept them with a few tetra here and there, but not many. Corys, what else? Beta bettas. I have so many different things, because in the beginning I kept combinations that you really probably shouldn't keep. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But if you're going to the fish store and you're not really sure what you're going to come across, as long as they're not fin nippers, because guppies, even though there are some shorter fin guppies, more wild type guppies that don't have the long flowy fins, there's definitely guppies out there that sometimes it's hard to even know if it's a guppy or a beta betta. because their fins are so long that they can barely swim. And they're just, if they're a fin nipper, it's written like, it might not like kill them, but their fins are going to be shredded and it's going to take time to heal.
Well, if you're at the local big box store and you're looking for something else, you need to find something that says peaceful.
Yeah,
it
peaceful.
Will say peaceful and it will say community on it.
If you're not sure,
and then
just ask.
look at the size of that fish and think about the size of your guppies. And then look at the size of that fish's mouth.
Yeah, if it can fit in their mouth, it's going to get eaten probably, or at least nipped. And if your goal is to breed them, make sure that their mouths are smaller than the fry if you wish to keep more than guppies in the tank. But it's a good thing to keep in mind. If you're keeping guppies, like you said, they're active in all levels. They're going to be at the top. They're going to be at the bottom, nipping on the substrate, because it's good. They're omnivores. You need to feed them different types of protein. You need to some kind of bug protein, and they do nip algae. So you need to have don't just feed fish flakes. Will they live? Yes. I've done it in the past when I didn't know better. But it's a good look to like stand back and be like, okay, they're at all levels. So maybe I'll get something like you said that just stays at the bottom, more like a pleco or a plecostomus or Neocaridina shrimp, that they're usually at the bottom, but they're swimming around everywhere, nipping on plants too. Just keep something that will handle the same temperature,
handle the same parameters that your guppies
and they're not fin nippers. I've kept them too. I've tried them with white clouds, and even though white clouds like colder water over guppies, they still did good together. So there's a lot of combinations, but the main thing to keep in mind is temperament and temperature.
Yes, 100%.
There's more too. We're forgetting, but those are the top two things for me with guppies that I'm like, are they going to nip their fins, and can they be in the 70-degree range? Okay, they can, and they won't destroy my plants. Yeah, they don't eat my plants. With plecos, the plecos never really that I kept. They never ate my plants, but they constantly uprooted some of them. So that's one combination. If it's a heavily planted tank, you might keep in mind you might lose a couple plants, but generally speaking,
and that's when
it worked 100%. It worked great.
Well, that's when your Cory cats, your corridoras come in there, because they are more of a sand sifter. They don't uproot as bad.
I was late to the game with corridoras, and let me tell you, they are so cute. But it's hard to beat a guppy, but they're cute. It's definitely a good recommendation to try. I agree with you.
I think it's a really good combination. The guppies and the corridors, or the guppies and really colorful Neocaridina with a planted tank. Back to my original topic of it, with a really nice, vibrant planted tank. The Neos, their colors pop. The guppies' colors pop. It's really wonderful to look at.
Yeah. And I guess look forward to another episode coming too. We'll go in more detail when it comes to specifically guppy breeding, because I feel like that can be an episode in and of itself. And for the sake of this one, it's more of the do's and don'ts that I've learned along the way of keeping guppies. But make sure you follow the podcast and stay tuned, because breeding guppies, the topic of breeding when it comes to talking about guppies is like, of course, like a huge thing, and
you can get way in depth into it.
Stay tuned.
You can go down a rabbit hole. We could talk for hours.
That I've noticed that it really can be as simple as just putting some males and females together, and chances are you're going to have fry. There's been a few occasions here and there where I feel like the female or the male was sterile and it didn't work out, but it was few and far between. So I feel like we've gotten some tips and tricks on just guppy breeding that we'll definitely film that soon. So stay tuned for that. And I guess the last thing, we've kind of skimmed over it, that I can think of for this when it comes to do's and don'ts is diet, food. Make sure you give them the thing I learned, like I mentioned earlier, is there for a long time, I just fed fish flakes. And everything worked. They bred, like I said, they stayed alive. They seemed okay. But if you're able to give them high quality and a variation, a variety, it changes things to a whole new level. And that's why I think it works so well outside, because they have live food that some of it I can't even see. And if you just sometimes move some of the floating plants, some of these little, they're almost like, I don't know, they're so tiny you can barely see them, but the guppies eat them up. And I think that's why the fry comes so much, it's just so much more abundant, the fry outside versus inside. So if you can, you're never going to duplicate that completely, but if you can try to hatch baby brine shrimp, or try some frozen fruit, or try granules, or try some pellet, like smaller pellets, or just try more than just the staple. Like, having fish flakes is always a staple. I'll always feed it. But whether just trying one kind, now I try spirulina flakes when I want to feed flakes. Just having that. You don't want to eat the same thing.
Well, that's what I was just getting ready to say. Fish, almost every different species we've kept are just like us. You got to look at it that way. In my opinion, and solely my opinion, you don't want to eat the same thing every day.
No.
Guess what? Your fish doesn't want to eat the same thing every day. It doesn't want just flakes every day. You don't want to eat just cereal every day for the rest of your life.
And it's important, like I said, they need some bug protein and they need some vegetable protein. So
they need a balanced diet.
So nipping on the algae and feeding them some. I discovered Bug Bites. It's made from, I think, mosquito larva. It's some kind of larva. And that, they really enjoy that. I get the really small, fine one. I think it's the light blue label. But there's just so many different foods on the market, and it's easier for me than ever to try new foods. And I'll say it again, like, I always feed fish flakes. It's a staple, but there's krill flakes and spirulina flakes and all these different types of even flakes that it's fun to experiment with new foods. And I don't hatch tons of baby brine shrimp, but I've done it a handful of times that I'm getting better at it. And that is a good way to introduce some. It's like I said, you can't duplicate outside. And I try to bring some of the outside water in the inside a few times here and there, but offering different foods in a different variety and feeding, don't overfeed, but feed a little bit. That's what I was just getting ready to say.
Yeah. Since we're on food, let's move into why you should not overfeed your guppies.
I have done that. Like, I have thrown so much food in a tank at once, it's embarrassing. But I have learned, do not overfeed your tank, and do feed them maybe once or twice, at least once a day, a smaller amount, especially if it's twice a day, a smaller amount more often. And that does way better than feeding them every time you go past the tank, or whenever you would remember, oh, I haven't fed them for a couple days, so I'm going to feed them a whole handful. It doesn't do anything any favors. Just get on a good schedule and feed a smaller amount, a good variety of food, but a smaller amount, at least once or twice a day. If you have fry, you can use the same food, just crush it up smaller. And you can train them to go in one spot. So every time you go to that corner, they're going to come up there and get excited. Or you can, if you want to make sure everything's fed, kind of crush it up with your fingers and spread it out through the whole tank. You don't have to put it in just one spot if you want to make sure everything gets fed. But just don't dump a bunch of fish food in your tank.
It causes a ton of problems. If you've listened to any other episodes,
go back through the library and listen to
we've explained why you shouldn't. However, the general accepted rule, and it's kind of a rule that I run with all the tanks, because I am in a habit of feeding them, like, as I go by the tank, or twice a day. If I look and I'm like, oh, I think they need to be fed, you only give them just a little sprinkling of what they will devour completely in about a minute.
Yeah, and I don't even go that long. It's usually like 20 seconds. Because I feed them. I'm here all the time. So if I feel like they need more, I'm here to give it to them more. But I start off to literally what they can eat in just 15 to 30 seconds. You can if you want to feed them that way. And the main point, I guess, is just make sure if it's a minute or 10 seconds, just make sure there's no food at the bottom that's wasting away. Because that's just going to cause a ruckus. So just don't do that.
Yeah, that's a bit.
Just make sure everything gets fed. And however much you want to feed, that's up to you. Depends on how much fish is on your tank and baby and all that.
How
just make sure
your
everything
tank
gets
is.
fed. Just make sure everything gets fed.
Well, it does depend heavily on how stocked your tank is. On how much
what
food
else
you're
when it
putting in
comes-
there.
What else did we cover everything? I know breeding, like I said, is a whole topic when it comes to, and I know we talk about guppies, there are the endlers, and I keep them the same. And I really like the endlers. They're different than fancy guppies, but I keep them and feed them the same, but they're equally as enjoyable.
Yes.
If you haven't tried an endler, I highly recommend it. And if you haven't tried a fancy guppy, I highly recommend it. But
She's going to highly recommend all guppies.
Yes, but I know some people probably keep them differently, but for me and my fish room, when it comes to I keep them the same.
Well, their water parameters are almost identical.
They're very similar.
There's it's not a drastic difference. It's not a big swing.
I guess, is there anything else you want to talk about? Stay tuned for the guppy breeding episode coming to you very soon. I'm not sure when, but we'll get it out soon.
And if you want to dive...
I'm excited to talk about breeding guppies.
Well, if you want to dive really deep into guppies, check out the website, ScienceGal Aquatics.com. She has an entire section devoted to just guppies.
Yeah,
and
you're
guppy
done reading,
breeding.
Check out the merch after you're done reading.
And guppy breeding, and tons of very helpful pictures and photographs on what you're looking at and what you're looking for.
Yeah, like I said, there's tons to look at. More coming soon.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely more
Always coming soon.
I'm trying to think as we talk, and it's not working. We talked about try different substrates. Put live plants in your tank.
Just do not use anything too abrasive.
Yeah, don't. Some of those plastic plants can tear fins, and you just don't want if you can choose, go with live plants.
Yeah. Do not put anything super abrasive in your tank. Do not
turn off the light.
Yep. Do turn off the lights. Do not leave the light on too long.
No aggressive tank mates.
Yep. Do not have aggressive tank mates.
Turn off the light. Breeding coming soon. Temperature. Don't go. You can breed them in colder water, but I wouldn't recommend going much low, 64, 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Too much over probably 80, 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's see.
They are a wonderful, hardy fish.
Yes. I can't say, guppies are the best.
Oh, they are. They're a wonderful, hardy fish. A wonderful way to get into the hobby if you're not already in the hobby.
Yeah.
And a good way to also experiment with plants, substrates, everything, because they can handle a wide range of variety. So if you're looking for a starter fish, definitely guppy is the way to go. Yeah. And a very enjoyable, colorful, peaceful fish that you can easily take care of and learn about without any problems or feeling like it's a job.
Yeah, and if you want to breed a fish for the first time, guppies they're just nice because they are live bears. I feel like they're easy to breed. They're a good fish to keep for no matter your experience level, and they get excited to see you at feeding time it's just, I can't say enough good things, and they're just beautiful, good fish to keep.
100%.
There's nothing to say.
Well, that's why you can go to
go buy some guppies.
Well, that's why you can go to any local pet store, any big box store that sells fish, and you are going to see several multiple tanks that have guppies.
Yeah, and I guess another topic that we can talk about here pretty soon is I haven't dealt with many like drastic cases of sick fish and treated them with, but there are a few things that I have run into with guppies that are, it seems like it's pretty common. Things like there's a live bear disease that's just basically they look really skinny and they just stop eating. It feels like that's when I see it. There's a few things parasite wise that I've ran into that's, we can keep it pretty guppy specific, but it's just going to be kind of what I went through. That's probably another pretty interesting, I think, topic when it comes to guppies, but it's not, I'm not a vet or any type of anything. So it's going to be just what kind of I ran into with guppies. And then, yeah, stay tuned for breeding. I hope this helped you, though, just with the things that we talked about, kind of a little bit of do's and don'ts with guppies that I've learned along the way. Hopefully this helped, and you can share this with a friend and help support the podcast and the show with sharing this out with someone new, experienced, or just has a question with guppies. Hopefully this podcast will help them. And we appreciate your help with sharing this out, so thank you. And if you're interested in watching this podcast, if you haven't watched one already, go check out the membership page over on YouTube with ScienceGal Aquatics.
Yes.
You can check out the fish room in the background. But if you are watching this already, I appreciate you. And until next time, is there anything else?
Nope. Until next time, guppy breeding.
Bye.
Bye.